Alright. The recording is up and running. So,
we'll get into the swing of this, but
yeah.
So are we doing introductions first?
Yeah, we should probably start with introductions. I think that's generally for anybody, a good way to start for anybody who doesn't know who the hell we are already, because we don't have much of an audience. We love the audience we do have, but we don't, it's not huge in numbers. So, hello, welcome to the Professional Nerds Podcast, where silly shit is serious business. I'm Ryan. I'm a nerd. I do a lot of nerdy stuff, especially comics, superheroes, and I'm an academic about it. So I bring a fancy, theoretical, scholarly perspective, totally justifying all those bullshit degrees. All right. How about you guys?
I'm Van. I'm just a nerd for work, but do lots of nerdy things. I LARP, anime, comic books, stuff like that. Lots of video games. I'm here to ask the dumb questions. That's my role.
Right.
It's very important.
It is. We need somebody like that.
Super useful. I'm Gabe, also lifelong nerd. More into the deep dive lore of the various worlds that have captured my ADHD hyperfocus over time. And I use my philosophy degree to piss off Ryan.
That really is true.
But speaking of philosophy, this is a new year, right? So, and everyone has their New Year resolutions. I think it was just recently, what was it? National, Resolution Fail Day, like a couple of weeks, and then everyone starts falling off the bandwagon.
Yeah, statistically, most everybody's done by, the 21st or something like that. I don't know the specifics of National Failed Resolution Day or whatever it is, but that makes sense to me as why that exists.
Yeah.
Somebody with statistics and a mean sense of humor. My kind of people.
I didn't have any super crazy New Year's resolutions. I don't know if y'all did, but I'm trying to meal prep, save money, stuff like that, and be healthier.
I love the doubt in your voice when you said that. Do I want to live longer?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. And for any of those of you who are thinking that question mark was because he wasn't sure if he could do it, that wasn't it.
Yeah.
Because if he wanted to, that was the question.
I think it's a very millennial take on things, live long and prosper. I don't know, sounds like a threat to me.
Yeah, kind of the way things are going. I mean,
yeah.
But back to you guys have any fun resolutions?
Hey, there's a dark topic. Let's swerve to avoid that. I don't know. There are some things I want to do this year, but I don't want to make them resolutions because nobody keeps resolutions. I just want to do them.
That's fair.
Really want to quit smoking.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, but
nice.
it's a bitch and a half to do, and I tried some, quit smoking medicine, and first morning I took a pill, I went just deep depression. And so I have enough problems with mental health. I really don't want to fuck with that too bad. So I'm gonna
effect from medicine you want.
Yeah, those are side effects that are real serious for me. So I'm working on it and trying to take baby steps and do something that's less terrible for my health.
Yeah, slow and steady is a good way for long term.
I don't know what Zens are, but I know I have coworkers that use them, but I think they're like tobacco nicotine. You put them in your mouth.
Yeah.
In the little pouches.
Yeah.
I don't want to get you on chewing tobacco, though, because that's gross.
Yeah, it's not like chewing tobacco.
Please don't do that.
It's a little pouch that it's somewhere between snuff and chewing tobacco. And I used chewing tobacco for a little bit when I was working overnights at a place where I couldn't smoke, and it ended up always giving me terrible nosebleeds for some reason.
I mean, fuck all
gross.
of that. I was just trying to give you a better option.
Yeah.
Help. I'm just trying to help.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Smoking is bad. The official stance of this pod.
Yes.
Don't do it.
Smoking is bad.
This is not
Smoking
me being...
cigarettes is bad.
Yeah, there you go. This is not me being hypocritical and saying, do as I say, not as I do. This is me saying, don't make my mistakes. Anyway, but back to any resolutions, Gabe?
Yeah, same. I didn't really form it in terms of resolution, but I have been working in the last few months of doing some lifestyle changes and things, and I've actually cut way down on my engagement with the Devil's Lettuce, which has been really good.
Good.
I've been working out more and stuff like that. I'm actually doing a cut right now. It's been very effective, so it's been pretty cool.
Also, lean in or speak up a little more.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the other night I was on my way home from my friend. One of my friends had a birthday, and so we were out dancing. And on the way home in the car, and like I'm all high from the dancing, and we one of my favorite Linkin Park songs came on, and so I was like scream singing it, and I killed my voice. And then I went out last night again and was trying to talk to people over the music, and so my voice is
That'll do it. Yeah,
is a little tanked today.
Gotcha. But yeah. So or do you want to do the segue, Van, since it was your idea?
I mean, I don't know. It was like just on the topic of like New Year's resolutions, new things. I was thinking along the lines of there's like different ages and reboots that comics go through all the time, and I don't really understand always the differences between like Silver and a Golden Age, and different things like that, or the reboots of the multiverses. Like I think the only media that I've ever seen something interesting in with the ages was My Hero Academy, when Deku's like geeking out about, oh, that's Golden Age All Might, and like,
oh yeah, that's his Silver Age costume.
Yeah,
that's so cool. Which, as a fanboy nerd, that I loved that. Yes. So yeah, today we're going to talk about the ages of well, not so much the ages of comics, but reboots. What are they, and are they any good? Should we just...
And why they're done.
Yeah, and why they are done. So, bit of history or bit of background. The ages of comics are unofficial designations, or quasi-official at best, that kind of describe general themes or general ideas. It is related to a thing in scholarship. If you look at, I believe Thomas Schatz was the guy who wrote about it, about genre evolution cycles. He was writing in the 80s, looking at Hollywood and looking at like westerns, gangster movies, and musicals, and these stages that they go in where there's a stage where everything's proliferating and it's all kind of fuzzy. Then there's a stage where everything's solidified and you have the conventions getting set. And there's the experimental phase, and so on and so forth. Somebody applied this to comics, or many people have, and a lot of it's just kind of the informal thing of like, since Aristotle and Socrates of, there's ages of like, there's the Golden Age and the Silver Age and the time when everything was pure and the time when et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Humans like to categorize stuff. So the ages are unofficial. The only official things you'll get are, and even these are kind of iffy, are 1938, because that's when Action Comics #1 was published. First Superman story, first superhero story. And even then, there are some people who say, well, like, comic books existed before that. Yeah, but they were reprints of, like, comic strips, so only kind of, sort of. And then the other big date is 1985, when Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns came out. Because that was the big, like, no, comics are for adults now. And even then, you'll get people who disagree and argue about them. But they do map fairly interestingly to genre evolution cycles. And it's especially cool with comics because they actually extend beyond what Schatz was looking at. To my knowledge, comic books or superheroes are the only genre that has maintained its longevity past the 4 ages that Schatz talked about. So in comics, we've got 5 or 6, maybe even more. Because Westerns even though Westerns were around forever, they haven't stayed in popularity the same way that superheroes have.
Yeah, one will come out every now and then.
Yeah.
And, we'll have a little life for a minute, but...
Yeah. So the Westerns and the musicals and the gangster movies are still around. They just aren't as dominant and aren't as recurrent as superheroes are. So go ahead.
Musicals are having a revival.
Oh yeah,
in a big way right now, which is very cool. And I mean, we don't have to get into it necessarily, but like the Wicked movie, was.
I still haven't seen that yet. I want to see it.
Yeah, it was brilliantly done, just all around, and Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah,
they're doing and like Hamilton and like there's been a new resurgence of a new kind of musical that has been evolving. But in general,
and I will say there's probably some scholar out there who's not me, who's going to write about that as like, here's the next stage of the musical evolutionary genre. Mm-hmm. Here's how it maps.
And it's kind of already hit comics, hasn't it? That was the Joker 2 was kind of a musical aspect thing. Or I haven't actually watched it, but that's what I heard.
I haven't watched it. All I know is that it was terrible.
I haven't heard great things about it.
I haven't watched it. I've just formed an opinion.
I have heard from people whose opinions that I trust that it was absolute garbage, and I have trusted their opinions on it enough to not worry about it. But so yeah, there is that. But that's what the ages are. They're informal definitions. And it kind of focuses on like what are big themes, what are big kind of collective ideas. I've also seen books that say don't worry about the ages and do it by decade, and so you're like all the 70s together, all the 80s together, and so on and so forth. So it's just a way of parsing it.
Okay.
The reboots are actually formal restarts of the entire universe, and the way they didn't really happen until, well, there was kind of an informal one in about 1954, and the first official one was 1985, and they both happened at DC.
Wait, how is one unofficial?
So, basically, in the Golden Age, so 1938 to, I say 1954, the early days of comics, World War II era, the kind of status quo defenders, super dad type stuff. It was the Justice Society of America. That's the clear demarcation. It was the Justice Society. You had Alan Scott, Green Lantern, the one who got his power from leprechauns. You had Jay Garrick, Flash, the guy with the Hermes helmet and the jeans, who still looks cooler than regular Flash. These are all in the Golden Age. These are big in the 40s and early 50s. Seduction of the Innocent comes out, which is Frederick Wertham's book that says, oh my God, the comics are evil and Batman is gay and Wonder Woman's a lesbian and it's making all the kids into gay, lesbian, juvenile delinquents. And oh my God, moral panic, people are stupid. Anytime you hear somebody say like, oh, the video games, oh, the rap music, oh, the this, that, and the other, it's the same bullshit that they've been spouting since time immemorial.
Well, it's one of my favorite stories is that that happened when the printing press was invented. Is they were like they're gonna spread all the ideas too quickly and it's gonna turn everyone into all of the normal crap that people are scared of.
Yeah, they said it about the waltz. They said it about chess.
Yeah,
like oh my God, these people are spending all their time playing a game. So yeah, anytime anybody says that, it's utter bullshit. It's nonsense. If you are a younger person or like us, a less young person, but slowly coming into our generation's coming into power. Don't do the same fucking thing in 20 years. Remember that it was bullshit when they did it to us, please. I'll get off my soapbox now. But yeah. Where was I? Oh, right. Frederick Wertham comes out. Comics are evil. I have also, a lot of what he was writing about was like Tales from the Crypt and that company, EC. I have shown that to students, like some of the most gory stuff that he cited in his book. They laughed. Like, I have seen Simpsons Treehouse of Horror intros that were gorier than these things. And like, this is just cute. Yeah, it's a horror story, but it's like, oh, they turned his organs into a baseball diamond. Haha. It's gross, but it's silly gross. So yeah. Anyway, comics nearly died. Superheroes as a genre almost died. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman were really the only survivors. Even Captain America didn't really do well. This was also the age when Captain America was fighting communists. They retconned that in the 60s and say, no, Captain America was in the ice floe, and the government got a guy to dress as Captain America to punch commies. Because that's why he sucked. Because it wasn't really Steve Rogers. It was just propaganda. So they retconned it. So the unofficial reboot comes with showcase. Go ahead.
Sorry. So they retconned it to be a different, because they said it's not Steve Rogers. Was it because the comic was bad, or was because they liked communists back then, or like, oh no, we're not being communists?
Well, it was very nationalist propaganda. It was basically they were trying to use Captain America the same way they had in World War II, except this time against the commies.
Gotcha.
And it didn't sell as well, and nobody really liked it. And so when they brought him back in the 60s as like, oh, he was trapped in ice the whole time. What about those comics we did in the 50s? That was a different dude. Yeah, because Steve Rogers was in the ice, and the government obviously couldn't let Captain America die, so they got a local guy and just dressed him up.
Gotcha.
And they actually... Anyway, so the soft reboot, Showcase Presents number 1, is the introduction of Barry Allen, the Flash.
Yeah.
And he becomes the Flash, and he actually gets his inspiration by reading a Flash comic book from the Jay Garrick Flash, the Hermes helmet. And so he's reading about him and like, he's pretty neat. I want to be a hero like this guy, like this fictional character. So I'm going to use his name, but a slightly different costume.
Interesting.
So it's a soft reboot. They're basically saying like, okay, that old stuff is fictional universe. This is the new Flash, and he's much more science-y than magic-y. And new Green Lantern, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman are still there. Don't ask questions. So it's a soft reboot. Because a lot of this early comic continuity didn't have continuity. That's why comics are so weird in the early days. They didn't, like, nobody saved this. It was junk. You know, you would throw the comic, you spent 10 cents on a comic book, you'd throw it away, was the publisher's thought. A lot of kids didn't, but they, kind of like early TV shows, they don't really, there's no continuity from one episode to the next. Or at best, they're like, introduce a character and then bring him back later as, oh yeah, we've seen him before, but don't worry about it. So they just kind of redid the whole universe of like, oh, well, it's a new Flash and a new Green Lantern because, well, we want money. And just shut up. There is no official reason. After a while, nerds being nerds, they wouldn't accept this. And so DC had to come up with a reason. And that's where you get, I think it was 1961, The Flash of Two Worlds, which has Jay Garrick meeting Barry Allen. Because they, Flash can like run so fast, he vibrates through the dimensional barrier. And he goes, oh shit, there's another Flash. Wait a minute, didn't I read comics about you? That's where you get the establishment of, okay, one universe's comic book is another universe's reality. There's actually two universes running parallel. One has the Justice Society. That's Earth 2. That's the old one. One has the Justice League. And that's, again, a soft reboot. Because it's not really... It was rebooting the whole universe, but later retconned as, oh, it's actually a different universe, so it's not fully a new thing. And that became a thing. That got popular. And so it got to the point where every year they would do a crossover with a new Earth. Either, 1 year they'd all go to Earth 2, then 1 year they go to Earth 1. Then they went to Earth 3, which was the evil Earth, where everybody was a villain and Lex Luthor was a hero. Then they went to Earth X, which was controlled by the Nazis. And then Earth S, which was the Captain Marvel, Earth S for Shazam. And basically every time DC bought a comics publisher that was going out of business, they just added it as New Earth, which is where Charlton Comics comes in, which is Blue Beetle, the comedian, or not the comedian, Peacemaker, Captain Atom, basically Watchmen. Watchmen is the Charlton universe. 1985.
Blue Beetle from the Watchmen universe?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He's Night Owl. And that's why there's two Night Owls in there, because there was an earlier Blue Beetle who was just a cop with like a super serum. So 1985 rolls around. This has been going on for 20 years. It is a fucking mess. There are more Earths than anybody knows what to do with, and it's very confusing, and every year they have to throw in a new one and explain everything, and it's scaring off new readers, says DC. And so they say, screw it, wipe the slate. smush them all together. And they do Crisis on Infinite Earths. And what this is basically that. The Anti-Monitor eats all the alternate universes. All of them are dead, except for 5.
Wait, with the Anti-Monitor?
Yes, there's a thing called the Monitor. There's a thing called the Anti-Monitor from the Antimatter universe. He's just basically an antimatter god. He's never much of a character. He's just think Galactus with less personality. And
less personality.
Exactly.
Galactus.
That
Okay,
is.
all right.
I know.
He's a literary device, then, is what you're saying.
Yes, exactly. Even the Monitor has more of a character. He's just big negative evil.
So it's not like the Marvel version of like the Watchers.
No, they're kind of called that of like, oh, I monitor this universe because it's the only universe, or it's the big one, or whatever. And my brother is the anti-monitor, and he's made of anti-energy, and he monitors the anti-stuff. It was the Watcher without being the Watcher because they built him to destroy everything.
Gotcha.
So he eats all the universes except for the 5 best-selling. Basically,
Just conveniently.
yeah.
That's such a that just immediately makes me think of Deadpool versus Wolverine,
They'll never notice.
and them talking about the timelines and the whole thing where he's like being cradled by Thor and even and just to sprinkle in some other stuff. I've been playing a lot of Marvel Rivals recently, and the whole thing with Jeff the Land Shark, that his existence as a character is largely that he showed up in some of the Gwenpool comics, and then she literally goes to Deadpool and says, I don't think my universe is safe for him. And it was basically I think we're going to get canceled, so I need you to take Jeff so he'll be okay in your universe. And that's why Jeff the Land Shark still exists and how he ended up with Deadpool for a while.
Good.
Yep.
Jeff the Land Shark's awesome.
He's so amazing. Anyway,
Yeah.
there's been a whole new series of Instagram reels and stuff at this point of little comics of Jeff just doing things.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Jeff the Land Shark is great. So basically it was that. So I think the ones that survived the initial cataclysm and were actually in the comic, which went a full year. It was a full year, all of DC miniseries, was Earth 1, Justice League, Earth 2, Justice Society. I mean, that's why Justice League is Earth 1, because Justice League was selling better when they made that, and it was the main thing. Earth S, the Captain Marvels. Earth 5? I forget which one it was. The Charleston universe. So the Blue Beetle and Peacemaker, because that's when they got it brought in. And I think Earth X went, I forget which other Earth, but there was one more that was okay, we have some properties in this thing and we're going to bring them into our universe. They all get smushed together. In fact, the main universe is not even the original universe. It's not Earth 1. It's a new amalgamation where all their histories are mixed together. So that's how Billy Batson, Captain Marvel, is now living in the same world as Superman. And that's why there are, Jay Garrick knows Barry Allen and trained him when he was first starting out, and the Justice Society, and that's why there's Justice Society had Hippolyta, Wonder Woman, and Justice League has her daughter Diana as Wonder Woman, and so on and so forth. This is where all this gets merged together.
Oh, weird. I didn't know. I've seen Wonder Woman's mom in comics and stuff, but I didn't know she was actually Wonder Woman at some point.
She only was via retcon.
Oh, okay.
So in the 40s and 50s, it was Diana, and her mom was queen back on the island, and she was in Justice Society. In the 60s, it was Diana, her mom was back on the island, and she was in Justice League. And then when they merged them together, they said, oh, well, the one fighting in World War II was actually Queen Hippolyta, and she went, and then her daughter came back to man's world.
Gotcha.
And it depends on who you ask and when, because sometimes that's not entirely accurate. That's also when Paradise Island became Themyscira.
Yeah.
Because before that, it was just Paradise Island.
Because it was all women and Amazons.
Well, and
Yeah.
J. Moulton Marston meant it to be a paradise, utopia of women in charge and making society better.
Oh, okay. So Not sexist. My bad.
No, anti-sexist. He was very much a very hard
Pull
feminist.
it all the way out of the bag. The microphone is going to pick up all of this.
That is true.
Really?
Please stop it.
Yeah.
You're killing me.
I was trying to run the table.
Don't worry about the table. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of the first reboot. Is the first official one. They wipe all these universes. They meld them all together. This causes a lot of problems, like just huge gaping plot holes. Like there's like 10 different versions of Hawkman, and nobody's sure which one's the real one. Even Hawkman doesn't really know.
Why are there?
Because they just wrote the story poorly, and nobody was paying attention to Hawkman. Because
Hawkman sucks.
he kind of sucks, but nobody was paying attention enough to go like, there's a huge hole here. What did we do, guys? Supergirl didn't exist for a while. Huntress, nobody's even sure who Huntress is or where her parents are, because Huntress was originally Earth 2, Bruce Wayne and Catwoman's daughter, who goes adventuring.
That's cool.
And then she's on Earth 1, but her parents don't exist. Like Bruce Wayne and Catwoman exist, but not married with a daughter. And so she's running around like Batman doesn't know what the fuck to do with her. Which is also why I always freak out in like later cartoons. We're like, oh, Huntress is hot for Batman. No, she isn't. No. Little history, guys. No. Bad.
I did like the Arrow treatment for Huntress.
Yeah.
Where she's the daughter of a mafioso who killed her fiance, and she goes on a revenge quest, and that's her origin.
Yeah, that's
pretty
cool.
Kind
of the newer version.
Yeah, which is fun.
But there were a lot of huge gaping plot holes like that. But so basically, that kind of leads to the modern era, because DC made a lot of money with that reboot because it was a whole multi-year thing, and everybody wanted to see it. It was kind of the start of the every few years or now every year like big crossover event. And DC basically got in the habit of every few years, especially since the early 2000s, every few years a new reboot. We wipe the slate clean and we introduce it to a whole new audience of just here's brand new characters, the old characters you knew in a new way. Marvel, and again, DC every few years wipes the slate clean. It did it with New 52, it did it with Rebirth, it did it with the dark metal shit, which some was good and some was god awful. But it's hard to remember, like, okay, how many universes exist at any given time? Which version of DC are we going with? That's how they've been keeping up to date. That's kind of their business model. Marvel's business model for the main universe has been to just compress time and not worry about it, or just hand wave it. Like, when did all this happen? A few years ago. When did Spider-Man get bit? A few years ago. When did Captain America wake up? A few years ago. How did he wake up now and yet was in the Nixon administration? Shh, don't worry about it. It doesn't make sense. We understand that. We're not going to worry about it. Just don't sweat it. And then Marvel will introduce alternate universes. They did try to do a reboot in the 90s with a character called Onslaught. And basically he was a combination of Magneto and Professor Xavier's minds and powers. And he, quote unquote, killed all the heroes. By which I mean he, like, zapped them into a new pocket universe where they started over from the fresh. Because Marvel wanted to reboot them for the 90s and, make more money with new audiences. They did that with the Ultimates universe and so on. But Marvel tends to do it with, like, here's a side universe and we'll keep the main one going for all the fans who are still giving us money. Because, boy, do comics fans bitch whenever there is a reboot or a change. So
Marvel also does a thing with scope that I find interesting, where, like, you have your Avengers dealing with, and they'll even talk about it in the comics, of, like, Avengers level threats and things like that. Like, there's, the world is ending, the Avengers go deal with that. Whereas then you have the whole, like, zoomed in New York City, Hell's Kitchen, Daredevil, Spider-Man, like, all of those characters, and, like, sometimes they'll transfer over, but they have a different focus and a different scale.
Yeah.
So, like, the Avengers are not going to deal with a local crime kingpin in a city. that's not their job. They're going to go deal with, like, Mysterio's trying to tear a hole in the world and, you know, make a portal between multiple universes, but it's unstable, so it could destroy everything. Yeah, we're going to go deal with that. That's a problem.
Yeah, that is one thing Marvel does well. They, like, there's the street level heroes, the Avengers level heroes, the cosmic level heroes.
Yeah.
I just picked up a new comic called Gods, like GOD, an acronym. There you go. And I don't know entirely what it's about. I haven't read it yet, but it's basically like, the forces of order and the forces of chaos, like science versus magic, with Doctor Strange and a bunch of people you've never heard of because they're operating at a whole different level. Yeah. I think somebody mentioned that was one of the better parts of some of the MCU of, like, you haven't heard of magic in the Marvel movies? Yeah, that's because the guys in Kandu are doing their fucking job. Like, Wong's on his shit. That's why you haven't heard of magic.
Yeah. Well, and that's it's a really interesting thing about Marvel Rivals. They have all these really cool, because their whole thing is it's a in between different multiverses. Characters from different multiverses have been brought together to deal with a specific problem.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's the Wanda from one universe talking to Doctor Strange from another universe, and them talking about their respective universes and what their outlooks are. And it's like the characters will have these dialogue lines in between them while you're waiting for the match to start. Like, you're just sitting there and Wanda's talking to Doctor Strange about, you know, law and order and chaos and stuff like that. And then there's, you know, some of the characters are like, you know, like Punisher. Punisher and Rocket are like, they bond on guns, and then Punisher keeps saying things like, listen, if you take one step out of line, I'm gonna kill you. Like, if you start doing shit, I will fucking turn this gun on you. Like, don't test me. And things like that. It's so, yeah. It's
I will murder you.
I will murder you.
So and I love I'm a big fan of the multiverse because I like the idea. That was one of my favorite parts about my adventures with Superman. As we've done an episode on the anime Sailor Moon Superman is what it is, and it's great.
The best one.
It is the best one.
Really
but I understand that there are people who are going to be like, no, it's Superman. He can't be Sailor Moonish, and this is a really weak Superman, and I don't like it. Well, that's okay, because in one of the episodes it makes very clear this is not the Superman, it's a Superman. Your favorite version is in a different universe doing his thing. This is just a different alternative. And to me, that allows you to have fun and still have, like, okay, I don't want an evil Superman, but I'm okay with a story about evil Superman, because I know good Superman's still out there.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of the multiverse, and I love multiverse shit. But yeah, a lot of the reboots, that's why the Ultimates universe exists. That's why, again, DC tried the New 52 as they relaunched and wiped everything, and it's a whole new universe, and everybody hated it. And so they said, oh, well, it turns out it's not a whole new universe. It was all a bunch of different universes trapped by multiverse Brainiac. And then Superman punched him in the face. Actually, I think it was Calvin Ellis. Black Superman punched him in the face. Calvin Ellis is the superior Superman. And yeah, so now they're all back, and it's just a whole mess. But they did an interesting in one of the reboots when Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen starts fucking with time in the DC universe, and they're like, "Oh, why did this version suck?" Because Dr. Manhattan was screwing around with it because we bought Watchmen.
Because we bought Watchmen.
Yeah,
just writing the comic books.
He makes the point at the very end of like, oh, I am in 1938, and there's a farm couple finding an orphan in a rocket. I'm in 1954, and there's a farm couple finding an orphan in a rocket. 1960, 1971, 1985, 2069, 2182. Like, this is a timeless story, so it gets repeated every generation because it has to be updated and kept meaningful, but it's both timeless and ever repeating, which is both very poetic and is a nice way for DC to justify some very poor editorial decisions. I'm never not a cynic. But so that's DC's approach. Marvel's approach is pop off a new universe and keep the main one going. What do y'all think about the idea of reboots? Is it a good idea? Is it stupid? Is it confusing?
There's a couple of things for me. One is that, yeah, you do have to update your stuff as time progresses because cultural consciousness changes, right? Like, there's a lot of things that would be a ubiquitous symbol of something in the 40s that either becomes obsolete and no one knows what that means anymore, or gets outdated in the sense that, like, we don't agree with that anymore, of that being the way that we interpret that, whatever, position or whatnot. And so you do have to update in order for your stories to stay relevant to your, your readership.
Good example of that first one, to interject, because I like the sound of my own voice. Do you know why that's why Superman wears his underwear on the outside? Do y'all know that story?
No.
Do you ever wonder why he does that?
Nope.
It's just like you're
just assumed it was a thing.
It's part of his costume.
The boots, the underwear on the outside, and the cape all come from circus strongmen. And the strongmen, especially in like the early 1900s, leotards were a new thing. And so, it was great because it let you show off all your muscles without showing off your horrible, horrible nipples, because that was, atrocious and nakedness. But early leotards had a tendency to tear in the crotch, like if you bent over or stretched wrong. So the performers would wear baggy shorts over the crotch,
oh my God,
so that they could, if something split, it would be fine. Superman was first shown in the big boots and the cape and the shorts as a visual shorthand for this is a strong man.
Oh my God.
And
See,
everybody
for me,
just forgot.
Growing up in the 80s and 90s, that always reminds me of Superman.
Yeah, that's what a
So, like,
superhero wears, a cape and the shorts on the outside. That's what you do.
Well, and when I would watch like luchador stuff, I was like, oh, like they're being superheroes. I get it. You know what I mean? And so, but like for me, the reference point was Superman and not the strongman, because by the time I existed, that strongmen in that way weren't really a thing.
Yeah.
And not in the public view the way that they...
And at best we would have would be like, bodybuilders, and
powerlifters and stuff.
They do a very different style.
Yeah.
So I just... And once I saw that explanation, like, oh, son of a bitch, that makes perfect sense. But that's what it is, and so that's one reason that these stories do need to be updated.
Yeah.
That's funny, because like my favorite riff off of that is, I always thought it was Superman reference and stuff, because also Doug Funny,
yes.
he was Quail Man, would
Quail
put his
Man.
underwear on the outside of his shorts because he's a superhero.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's crazy.
So I think, to go back to the question, I do think that reboots become necessary, and you can't take back your IP once it's out there in that sense. And you can do retcons and stuff, but you can still find the old comics, good or bad, and go and read them. Like, that's still available.
Yeah.
I do think that there's different ways to solve those issues, because the other thing you have to deal with in comics is that you have a squad of writers, right? You have a bunch of different authors who are putting their own takes on these same characters. And, they borrow characters from each other. Things go back and forth because they're all working under the same label. But each author is going to have their own take on those characters. And so you have to have a way to make the inconsistencies make sense, because you can't get away from the inconsistency.
Yeah.
And, like different literary universes deal with that differently. Like, we've used the example before, but one of my favorite things is the Warhammer literature, the Black Library, is that their background, like, hand-waving of inconsistencies is that all of this literature exists in universe, and it's written down by somebody. And so then there's the whole question that you have with any historical stuff of, what agenda was this guy trying to push, the guy who wrote this? Who was he? Where were his sources from? Like, was this guy interviewing the Imperial Fist, who the story is about, or was he interviewing a serf who worked for him, or was he interviewing an Iron Warrior who knew about him at the time? Like, and that will explain why there are these different inconsistencies, because an Iron Warrior is going to tell his story where he's highlighting his own strengths and how awesome they are and how dumb the Imperial Fists are, whereas an Imperial Fist source is going to do the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And so that's how they got around it without having to go to reboots, because when people are like, wait, but this doesn't make any sense, they're like, yep. You get to pick which one you think is more real, and so you get to build your own headcanon about it.
Yeah.
I think that's a brilliant solution as an alternative, but it's one of the only other alternatives other than reboots I can think of to account for that.
I do admit I like how they do that, but unfortunately, not every company can be as good as GW. Said no one ever.
Said no one ever.
I'm very on the fence about like reboots or whatnot. I like new content with new heroes and stuff like that. But I mean, if you look at Pokemon, they've spent every reboot trying to recapture the magic that Pikachu had, and like everyone loves Pikachu, and there's like a Pikachu-esque character in each game version, but no one loves him as much as Pikachu. So I understand why they want to reboot.
Yeah,
but I also like Clark Kent grows up, and I want to see him sunset and have like a great, rest of his life. He's not always being Superman, and I want to see someone else take up the mantle because he's like inspired people.
Yeah, and I will say there has been some of that in recent years. In the past,
Beyond.
well, and
Beyond.
Batman Beyond
So
was amazing.
good. So good.
In the past 5 years or so, DC has made big steps of like the original heroes are kind of retiring.
It's exciting.
Nightwing or Dick Grayson and Damian Wayne have taken up the mantle of the Bat. I think,
Which is terrifying.
yeah. John Kent is Superman's adopted son, I believe. He's a Kryptonian, so like he was adopted. Yeah, he's Superman's son and Damian's best friend, and he is now Superman. And then I don't know who takes over from Wonder Woman. It's another. I think they recently created a tribe of Amazons that actually lived in the Amazon, and were separated after long stretches of history. So a environmentally concerned indigenous person, Wonder Woman, took over.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So they've kind of, I'm not sure where it is because it gets confusing over the last few years, and I'm better with collected editions and trade paperbacks than with individual comics, and it kind of jumps back and forth. But basically they're retiring most of the regular heroes, or like having them semi-retired or what have you, and trying to introduce a new generation, which is pretty cool. They've done some interesting things with it.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know they were doing that.
Yeah. I think as part of that, Superman revealed his identity to the world.
Really?
Yeah.
How did that go?
Generally pretty well. I don't know if they've since retconned that, kind of like they did with Spider-Man. But my favorite part of the Superman revealing his identity is that I've only seen the one page of it, but it's Lex Luthor at the night after the reveal, like in his office, listening to his voicemail. You have 98 new messages. First message. Ooh, oh, you idiot. Delete message. Message deleted. Second message. The Joker leaves him 98 full voicemails just laughing at his ass.
Glorious. Which one was it where somebody unmasks Batman in front of Joker and he's like, what the hell? Bruce Wayne, are you fucking kidding me? And
that was the Harley Quinn show.
Yes. Yeah, and he's just like absolutely pissed about like you ruined it. There's a way this is supposed to go.
Yeah, in the comics, Joker has at multiple points like found the entrance to the Batcave and was about to go in, and he's like, "Nah, I don't care. I don't actually care who he is. I only care about the Bat. It would ruin the magic."
Yeah.
He also, when Batman was dead for a little while, not officially dead, but just comics dead, and Dick Grayson took over as Batman, and Damian Wayne was Robin. He, after their first meeting, Joker's like, "You're not him. I know who you are. I don't know, not your actual name, but I know you're Nightwing. You're the first Robin. I recognize your fighting style. What happened to him?" And, he died. He was fighting Darkseid. It was a whole thing. Fuck. All right, I'm gonna go into retirement. I'm just gonna chill. You call me when he comes back. But he's dead. No, he'll be back. You call me. Yeah.
I love that. I will also say that there's the literary side of it, and then there's the whole capitalism side of it as well. Of ultimately these are businesses, and they have to sell copies and things like that. And you brought up the example of Pokemon, which in its inception, the whole concept of Pokemon is a shill.
Yeah.
And it's a great one. I love it. and
Well, I mean, I
and
knew it
will
was-
for the rest of my life. However,
I knew it was a shill when it's you can buy this copy or this copy, but you can only get literally cannot collect them all. The name of the game without buying both or having a friend to buy one. So like you have to, you can't just own the game and experience the full game. The bastards.
yeah. Well, and then
The clever bastards.
yeah, and as they've added more and more Pokemon, it's so that they can have more and more merch and more and more stuff. And again,
Plushies ain't gonna sell themselves.
yeah, and no shade, Pokemon. You do what you do it well, and I love it. Continue to give me weird little adorable creatures that
Leave Power World alone.
we dogfight. Yeah, leave Power World alone. No one's gonna leave Pokemon for Pal World. It'll be a both and kind of a deal. Anyway,
Definitely, they're different.
speaking
games.
from experience,
Yeah.
play Pal World. I'm still buying whatever new edition of Pokemon they release next because I'm gonna. That's how that works.
Every time I see a new Pokemon, all I can think of is Spaceballs the Flamethrower.
Oh my god,
The kids love this one.
Can you imagine a Charmander flamethrower?
I would pay
Right?
good money for that.
Yes, that would be amazing.
Especially if you could get it to go Charmander Char.
Yes. And then you make a Squirtle fire extinguisher to go with it, companion one.
Nintendo, you can have those ideas for free.
Yeah, just send us, like a prototype.
Yeah.
With a note. That's would be happy with that.
Little engraved copy. Mm-hmm. This is my golden flamethrower.
My golden Charmander flamethrower.
Anyway, reboots, I think, was the topic. I don't know how we got to
Play in silence as we all sit here imagining our little Charmander flamethrower and what we would do with it.
As we all just sit here in desire for a moment.
I'm gonna make the best creme brulee. Just torch the top with my flamethrower.
Yeah. There you go.
The creme brulee is only 2 inches wide. The flamethrower is like 6 feet long. Look, I bought this thing and I'll find reasons to use it.
The creme brulee is just like on a metal post, and Van's standing 20 feet away with it with the Charmander flamethrower and a pair of goggles. Just like, all right, Charmander, here we go.
We gotta brulee some sugar.
I gotta check the recipe. All my creme brulees seem to taste like gas.
Burning.
Yeah.
Those that survive. I'm just imagining you obliterate the thing entirely, and you're like,
It would take practice.
Yeah.
But I would hone that skill.
today on Useless Skills.
So, back to our topic. As we reboot this conversation. Hey, look at that segue. Hey. So, Van,
To
I
get
think
the
you
rest
were-
of the conversation, you just have to pay $12.99.99.
No, yeah, that's basically it. Like, I'm on the fence. I love the idea that there's, superheroes being able to retire and get their, happy ending, which I think they deserve. And, the new people coming out. Versus just rebooting the same stories over and over and over kind of a deal. I mean, they're different, but they're still essentially Superman shows up, Superman wins. We all go home.
Well, and like you were saying, a couple finds an orphan baby in a rocket is Superman's story. Every version of the reboot, they just keep doing the same version. And it would be interesting to have, Superman on Earth, whatever, is he his rocket lands in the middle of Harlem. What would that be like?
Yeah.
Or he lands in Russia.
Superman
Or he
23
lands-
is the best. Well, there's Red Sun,
I like
where
Red
he's communist Russia.
Yeah.
Superman 23, Calvin Ellis, Black Superman.
There you go.
Who is also the president. And
That's
has kind of a speech pattern that's recognizable.
I like it.
Oh no.
I need to read that.
He doesn't have anything on his own, but he shows up in some of the multiverse stuff, and he's awesome. He is my favorite Superman.
Awesome.
Have
And
you
his
seen
name
Into
is
the
Calvin
Spider-Verse?
Ellis.
No, I haven't yet.
Okay, then I don't want
need
to say
to.
it.
Okay.
I just... I guess the kind of premise of the movie, how the one storyline has in the web, whatever. I'm not going to talk about it because you need to watch it because it's so good.
It's great. It is also pisses me off so much because that's wrong. That whole one storyline is dude, Spider-Woman. Half of you are Spider-Woman. Jessica Drew does not have that storyline.
Gabe hasn't seen it yet. But I'm right there with you.
Yeah, but yeah,
I agree with you.
just because the spider's in the name doesn't mean that they're all the same character. God damn it!
Yeah.
Because some people have laser fingers, like a spider does. Anyway,
Most of my spiders have laser fingers.
It's terrifying. It's a
yeah,
cool wave at night, but
Yeah, I think that to me, to get back to our point, that to me is kind of the cool thing of like potential reboots or the alternate universe stuff.
Yeah.
Like, this is a character you know, but let's change something and see where that takes it. See how that opens up the character. Like, what if Superman, orphan, found in a rocket, but he's a black guy? How does that change the story? Because it does, and it makes it such a cool story, and it's open to so many people.
That's why I love the Marvel What Ifs, is that because then it lets them play with things for just a single episode or a few, comics and whatever, and like some of those are awesome. Like, isn't one of those like Deadpool gets the Venom symbiote? And Deadpool and Venom together, and it's fantastic.
That's that's main canon.
That's main canon.
He got them after the symbiote. They retconned it years later in a Deadpool comic that after the symbiote leaves Peter and is stuck in the church, but before it gets onto Eddie, it jumps onto Deadpool and they become best friends. I think Deadpool realized. I think it turns out that Deadpool's regeneration is hurting the symbiote,
and they can't stay together.
And Deadpool is like, "You're my bro, so we got to break up." Because Deadpool has profound feelings for this symbiote. Yeah. Again, not like romantic, but like
best friends.
Best friends, yeah.
It's Deadpool.
It's Deadpool.
You can never fully rule out romantic, but
not primarily romantic.
Backseat romantic.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I definitely like the alternate possibilities.
Yeah.
And the cool stuff like that.
Yeah. But the more different and interesting or the more creative you get with it, I think helps. But ultimately, I mean, really it comes down to like, did you do it justice? Like, did you take care of your characters? Did you put thought into it? Because what doesn't feel good is when a reboot happens and like all of the best and most interesting parts of the character are gone, and they've replaced it with something trite and like dumb, and that's when it sucks. And you're like, okay, no, like this character is way more interesting than this and way more cool than that. Like, why are you making them stupid? Like,
and I think part of that is there's that where they just make the character not the character anymore, which I think they've kind of done with the Absolute Universe. Which we might talk about next time, which is DC. And it always ticks me off when like it's okay. This is the same character. You just change the cosmetics. Like it's still Peter Parker. It's just now he has a cell phone, and he's not a photojournalist for the Bugle. He does their web page. Well, like it's still the same character.
Yeah,
you haven't done anything.
It's not a reboot. You've just updated the character.
You're just reselling me the same comic.
Yeah, and in which case, great. Peter Parker would have lived in a time where earlier on in his life, he would not have had access to cell phones, and later on he would have. Like, you don't need to do anything weird to make that work.
Yeah, you can
just be like, time passed and cell phones were invented, and he as a normal American got one.
He's
like,
been
oh no.
He's been in his 20s for the last 40 years. Yeah. I can just accept that one day he just suddenly knew what a cell phone is and always has. And because he grew up with them.
That, the spider, his superness may have altered the way that he ages. Like, those kinds of things are so easy to like, accept as a fan. To be like, sure.
Yeah, I'm already hand-waving time. You don't have to, like...
Exactly. We're already hand-waving stuff. You don't need to make that weirder.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have gone nearly an hour. So, any final thoughts or anything else to add?
Wow. Keep giving me content. That's all I care about. I want good content, of course.
Yeah.
They get good. I agree.
Well, next time, I think we are going to talk about different attempts at reboots. Or not reboots, but alternate universes. A bit about the Absolute Universe and the two Ultimates universes from Marvel. The shitty one and the new, amazing, awesome one.
Which we have reserved judgment on.
Yes, completely non-biased. That's me. Not judgmental at all. Well, with that, I think that's it. So take care.
Bye. Good luck with your New Year's resolutions.
Yeah, good luck with the resolutions. Do better than us. Bye.